Hi everybody, welcome back to the Coderoom. Now today's episode is all about HTML tables. Now in past episodes, we talked about headers, we talked about paragraph text, we've talked about adding even links to internal pages and external sites, and now we're just going to continue that discussion of learning about more and more HTML tags, and today it's all about tables. So, if we look here, let's say we want to add a table to one of our web pages, okay? And I'm just giving an example here. Let's say you're building a website for like a hair salon, and they want to show some pricing, say for their haircuts and their shampoos, and they offer different prices for, say, their regular pricing and for their people who are loyalty customers. Now, this is just one example, but you can use tables for all sorts of things, right? You display pricing plans, you can display, say, your store hours, you can even use to describe your services and your features and all this stuff. A lot of uses for tables, okay? Just to display any kind of table of data. And so this is our example here. So the best way to learn HTML tables is to deconstruct your table into how HTML looks at it, okay? And generally the way you do that is by dividing up your table into sections and dividing those into rows, okay? So let me explain what I'm talking about here. So here we have a table here, and we have the haircut and shampoo, so $50, $40 for loyalty customers, and shampooing is $30, and then $20 for loyalty customers. So the very first thing you want to do is you want to separate your table into the header and the body of the table, okay? So the header is basically, think about it's the row at the top of a table that has your headings, right? So in this case, it's really this top row here. So you have regular pricing and loyalty customer pricing. Okay, so that top section there, that is the head of the table, all right? Now below that, all the rows of data underneath that become the body of your table, okay? So that's the first logical separation you want to make, okay? So if I look here on the next slide, see I've separated it, the top part's the head, and this bottom part is the body, okay? After you've logically separated the head and the body, the next thing you want to do is separate each row into its own row, okay? So the head only has one row, it's this top row here with regular pricing and loyalty customer pricing. But the body actually has two rows. It has the haircut row and the shampoo row, okay? So we'll split those up, okay? So we have the head, which only contains this one row, and then we have the body, which contains this haircut row and the shampoo row, okay? So we split it up into head and body, and then we split it up into rows. And then the last thing you want to do is split up each row into the number of columns in that row, okay? Now typically in a regular table, each row will have the same number of columns, right? But in HTML, there's nothing stopping you actually from using, you know, less columns in a certain row. But we'll get into that in the future. Okay. So here, what we have is in the header row, we have this empty column, the regular pricing column, and then the loyalty customer pricing column. In row 1, we have the haircut column, and then the $50 column, and then the $40 column, okay? And in row 2, we have the shampoo column, $30 column, $20 column, okay? So we have something like this, right? We have column 1, column 2, and column 3 for each row, okay? But what you want to do, again, is think about it in that order. You split it up to head and body first, then you split it up into rows, and then within each row, you define the columns inside that row, okay? Or the cells in that row, okay? So now that you understand that, let's actually build this table in HTML. All right, so I'm gonna keep this side by side here so we can see what we're dealing with. Okay, so just to kind of bring you back to where we were, we had this web page that we were building with movies, TV, video game links, and we're just gonna put a new section in there called pricing, and then we're gonna put that table in there, okay? So let's go back to our code here. Just gonna make it slightly smaller as our code's gonna get pretty big here. So under the movies, TV, video games, and links, I'm gonna put another section here, create another header, okay, and call it pricing. And then underneath that, I'm going to start to build my table, okay? So I'm going to save this, okay, switch to Chrome, refresh it. Okay, so we got the pricing section ready, outlaid there. Go back to Sublime and start to build my table. Okay, so the first tag to start building your table is simply called table, all right? So that starts the big structure of the table. So table. And then as always, we close that tag as well, okay? So table and then close tag table. All right, now nested inside table, we do our first breakdown, all right? So our first breakdown was to break it down into the head and the body, all right? So the tags to mark the head and the body are T head and T body. Think table head and table body, okay? So nested inside the table, we'll have the table head, so T head, and close that. And then at the same level, nested inside table, we're going to have the T body. Okay, there we go. So T head and T body. So that was the first breakdown we did. Now after that, we broke down the rows inside the head and inside the body, right? So we have this row, and this row. So we have 3 rows total. 1 row inside the head and 2 rows inside the body, all right? So to add the rows, we use TR, okay? Think table row, all right? So in the head, we'll have 1 row. So TR for a row, and then we'll close that. And then in the body, we have 2 rows, right? So TR, and then close it. And then we have another row. TR, and close it. All right? So save that. So let me just bring this over to the side here. So again, this T head represents this header section of the table. And this T body represents the body section of the table. This TR represents this row here. This first TR in the T body represents row 1 with a haircut. And this second TR represents row 2. Now again, remember, we can space this out to make it a lot easier to read. So if you have some trouble following that, you can just kind of add some spaces, you know, and then it becomes really obvious that this is 1 row and then this is 1 row, okay? And now let's start to build the columns inside those rows, okay? So for the first row, the header row, we have 3 columns, column 1, column 2, and column 3. Column 1 happens to be empty, but it's still a column, okay? So to build a header column, you're going to use TH. So think of that as a cell in the header, okay? So in the table header. So in the table row, we want 3 cells, okay? So we're going to do TH and then close it. So that represents that empty cell here. Then we're going to do another one for the regular pricing. And then we're going to do another one for the loyalty customer pricing. All right, so we got those 3 cells which represent this one, and this one, all nested in the row, which is the top row here, all nested in the table head. Okay, now we can start filling out the actual content that appears in this table. So in the very first cell, it's blank, so there's nothing there, so we'll leave that. But in the second cell, we have the header regular pricing. So you can just type regular pricing. And then in the third cell, we're going to type loyalty customer pricing. Okay? So there we go. Now we're going to do the same thing for the body cells. Okay, so this row down here represents our haircut row. And so we need to put some cells in there or columns in there. And in this case, because it's in the body, we're going to use the default TD, which stands for table data, okay? But just think of a TD as like a cell in a row, okay? So TD, 1 of them, 2 of them, and 3 of them, okay? And in the first one, we want haircut. The second one, we want $50. Third one, we want $40. Okay? Now we want to do the same thing for row 2. So in row 2, we're going to have 3 cells. So TD, close it. TD, close it. TD, and close it. All right, and in this one, we want shampoo. $30 and $20. Okay? Now save that. Go back to your website and refresh. And there you go. You have a table. Okay? Now you'll notice the table doesn't have any borders, and we'll get into that in a future video when we talk about CSS and how to style your tables. But just know that this is how you can lay out the data, and we'll style it later, okay? So let's say you want to add another row. If you want to add another row, all you have to do is add another TR tag with a bunch of TD tags. So let's do that, okay? So we'll add a TR tag, and then 3 TD tags in there. All right, and let's say we'll call it coloring. And let's say that costs, $45, and $35. Okay, so save that, come back here, and there you go. You have a new row right there. Okay, so that's how you build tables. And one thing I want to mention here is that sometimes it can be a little bit confusing to look at a table in this fashion here. Okay, because you're kind of like laying it out vertically. So these TH is actually up here side by side and so on and so forth. But if you go back to that fundamental lesson here of how to break a table down, you should have no problem creating these tables, okay? All right, that's it for this lesson. We'll check you in the next one.